Okay.
All right. Well, depending on what part of the country you grew up in,
Yeah.
what part of the United States, would really determine what type of education you got as an African American. So I was pretty fortunate in that I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania?
So it was in the north part of the United States was more progressive, more accepting of African Americans. So I got a pretty good education,
Good for you.
although
Uh-huh.
I was like the only African American in my class.
Really?
Yeah. I never had an African American teacher.
Okay.
I only had female teachers, and they were always white. But I grew up in a really good school system in Pennsylvania. They still have one of the top public educations in the country. But when I was 11, we moved to a different state. We moved to Ohio. Now it's right next door, only 90 miles away. Totally different.
Totally different?
Totally different. I was in a big city now. I was in Cleveland, Ohio. So a big city. And for the first time, I was in an all-black elementary school. And there was only 2 white students. Everybody else was African American.
Wait, you want to go there or they put me?
No, that's my parents moved, so that was the school I had to go to.
Oh.
And I was 2 years ahead of those students because of me getting educated in Pennsylvania. I was 2 years ahead. So for 2 years, it was just like, okay. Because I had all that information. I had learned everything they were learning 2 years earlier.
That's good.
And then my parents moved. Same city, but a suburb. So like moving from Denver to Aurora. So we moved from Cleveland to Shaker Heights, which was a really wealthy, rich suburb. So now I was like only black in my class again. And it was a prep school to get you ready to go to college.
Oh.
So they didn't think, because I was black, that I could do the work. And really, I was back at home because of my education in Pennsylvania. So I caught back up to where I was supposed to be. They expected me to be a really good athlete. So they expected blacks to be able to run fast and jump high and hit a ball far and dance and stereotype. I was in Stereotype City, and it was a Jewish community.
White community?
Yep. Everybody had little things on their heads.
Is it the hat like Burley Tower and stuff?
No, the little circle.
Circle?
The little circle patch looking thing that they wear.
Okay.
And so all the students that I went to school with, their parents owned everything that you saw. Every building, every apartment complex, townhouse, everything. Because they were
rich.
wealthy. Yeah. They owned everything up. I went to high school. So you know the insurance commercial, Progressive, with Flo. She wears the white, they make the commercial funny. So, but her name is Flo. And she wears this white top and bottom, looks like a nurse, but she's advertising car insurance. Well, I went to high school with the kid whose dad owns Progressive Insurance. So they have he was worth $1.65 billion.
Oh my God.
And so this kid, his name's John Lewis, he grew up very wealthy.
Yeah.
Well, John inherited his dad's business. And Jimmy Buffett, the musician, his daughter just got married, and they had her wedding in John's backyard in Coconut Grove, Florida. And the singer, he's on The Voice, one of the judges on The Voice, Adam, sometimes he'll have the beard and they'll do his hair blonde. And he was the entertainment for the wedding.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the kind of people I grew up with. I grew up with kids whose parents were congresswomen, congressmen, senators, mayors of cities. So that's the type of people I went to school with. So, back to the African American piece. Their elementary schools, and when there was only 2 junior highs, we didn't have middle school. Junior high was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. High school started in 10th grade. So we had 2 junior highs. And none of the elementary schools were integrated. So my younger brother and sister, that's 59 and 60 years old now, they were the first to be bused to a white school. So they were in elementary school. We lived in this neighborhood where all the kids that went to this elementary school were African American.
Yeah.
And they bused them to integrate the elementary schools in Shaker. So they went from being in an all-black junior elementary school to being integrated into these white elementary schools.
And then what happened?
And just opposite, white kids from these schools had to go to the black schools.
Why so funny?
Because in our country, we had segregation.
Oh.
We had our own water fountains. We couldn't drink at the same water fountain as whites. We had different bathrooms. We had to sit on a different side of the restaurant. We couldn't eat in the same area. They had signs, coloreds only, because they didn't refer to us as African American then. Coloreds, whites. Everything was separate. And they called it separate but equal, meaning you can't go to school with other white kids, but we have to make your educational opportunity as good as the white kids. But they didn't. That's why I was 2 years ahead when I went to Cleveland, because I went to an all-white school in Pennsylvania, and they had really good education. Now, that only happened, me going to an all-white school, is because I was in the North. If I was in the South, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Arkansas, Texas, Tennessee, any of those places. No.
Totally
White schools,
different.
black schools. They didn't mix.
So only happens in the North.
Yeah, and not west of the Mississippi either. So not Montana and Washington and Oregon, just the eastern part of the United States. So we're Maine and Ohio and Pennsylvania, just that section.
Oh.
Anything above Kentucky and to the east, yeah, we kind of mixed. But anything south and all the way to the west, even the northwest, no. We still have a celebration in this part of the country, the Southwest. So we're in the Southwest.
Okay.
Texas, well, Rocky Mountain region too, but Texas, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, this whole area of the country. When slavery ended in 1865, in this part of the country, they didn't stop it. They continued to enslave African Americans. So we have a celebration now every June. I'll write it on the board. Every June, they have an African American celebration and it's called Juneteenth. So it's called Juneteenth, the month of June, and this is celebration. Guess why they have it? Because the states west of the Mississippi, they didn't find out until 10 years later that slavery had ended.
What?
Yeah. So they started this celebration Juneteenth because they found out in the month of June. What? Slavery ended 10 years ago? So they celebrated. And so they've been celebrating ever since. But you're right, that's what I said, because I grew up in the north. So when I came to Colorado, well actually, when I went to Texas to play for the Dallas Cowboys, well, Texas is in the south. And I didn't know anything about this celebration called Juneteenth. So the month of June came, and during the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th of June, that's when they celebrated Juneteenth. 13 through 19. Well, I didn't know what it was. And so they said, well, it's African Americans celebrating their freedom. I said, freedom from what? And they said, oh, well, in 1865, slavery ended in America, but west of the Mississippi, they still had slavery. And they found out 10 years later that they were freed 10 years ago. So they celebrated now. And I said exactly what you just said. I said, well, that was stupid. How could you not know that they stopped slavery? But when I went to Texas to play for the Dallas Cowboys football, our coach is from Texas. He grew up in Texas. He went to the University of Texas. And then he coached the Dallas Cowboys, which is in Texas. So he grew up where it was separate. Blacks over here, whites over here. They didn't mix. So even though it was 1979, he was still telling black players that made his team that they couldn't date white women.
It's your own problem.
Right. And I grew up in the north, so now I'm down here in the south, and I'm going, is this man crazy? How can he tell me who I can marry or who I can have a relationship with? But he was being honest. He says, hey, I grew up in Texas. This is the way it was.
Oh,
and, right, and if you're married to a white woman, I guess I have to accept it. But he didn't want us single guys dating white women, or he would not have us on his team. So that was even 1979. So we're talking 40 years ago. They were still passing this racism around. And then I got traded to the Denver Broncos. And our new coach played for the Dallas Cowboys, coached for the Dallas Cowboys. So he had 14 years of this other coach saying no whites and blacks should be together. And this coach was from Americus, Georgia, where slavery was big in his ancestry. So he comes to Denver and he gives the same speech.
What?
He doesn't want any black players dating white women. Well, if you've been in Denver for any time, you know there's lots of mixed couples.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a melting pot of America. So here he comes with his southern mentality, telling guys that they couldn't date white women. They shouldn't marry white women. So It's changed, but it hasn't changed totally. My wife is white. You might even know my son, Nicholas, tall. Let's see if I got a picture of him.
Well, it would be good.
Yeah,
to show
tall,
me the
light
picture.
skin. He's a junior here. I know you've seen him in the building because everybody knows Nicholas. I'll show you a picture of our family.
Okay.
And there are people in this building that have said to me, Mr. Manning, you just don't look like you would be married to a white woman. I said, well, what does that person look like? What does a person look like that's married to a white woman? All right, so, all right. So this is Nicholas. That's my wife.
Oh, wait.
That's my daughter. I'll give you. I know you've seen him. And then that's me. And that's my daughter. She looked like me. And that's my son, but he looked like his mom.
That's your brother.
Yeah.
You look young.
Yeah. So, and that was at Thanksgiving this year. But you might. This is my stem cell stuff.
Oh, okay.
You might know this picture. There's Nicholas. So he goes to school here, and he does the school plays. Maybe you saw him in this. So in one of our musicals, they go up into that material and be dancing up in the air. So he did that with another young lady that goes to school here. Here he is.
I think I saw this before.
Yeah, so that's my son.
Oh, that's her?
Yeah. Yeah, so he was in the school play. And then that's my daughter. She was in her school play. Yeah.
Well, they like acting, huh?
Yeah, they like acting and good students, both are straight A students. And so you see the difference in their color. All right, so my daughter's a little bit browner than he is. She's gonna have a totally different life experience because she's darker than he will because he's lighter. Even in our own race,
Really?
there are gonna be people that say, "You think you're special because your mom's white," and they'll see his sister and he'll go, "Well, that's my sister." "Well, she doesn't look like your sister. She's darker than you." "Well, my dad's dark." Yeah. And then racism. There'll be people that won't like them just because they're African American. Just not as people, just because they're African American. They don't have nothing to do with you.
But what if you're born in here?
Right. You didn't get to pick your parents. I didn't get to pick my parents. They didn't get to pick me as their parent. It happened. So people should accept people for who they are.
Yeah.
And not their race, religion, belief system, just for who they are. Well, we got a long way to go in this country. It's crazy, and I'm 62 years old, and I'll be 63. My mom, who I was just on the phone with, is 83. And when I asked my mother how things were in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, she goes, it was hard because there was a lot of racism. And now there's a little bit sneakier about it, but it's still there.
Still there?
Yep. Every day, somebody in this building reminds me that I'm black. Every day.
Cool.
Somebody will say something stupid. I got students that think that I shouldn't be their teacher because black teachers aren't smart. I got 2 undergraduate degrees and I have 2 master's degrees. I'm smart.
Well,
but there are people that think that I'm not just because it is. Well, he can't be that smart. He's black.
I think everyone is smart.
We got black doctors. We got black lawyers.
Yeah.
We got black senators. We had a black president. Yeah, black people are smart.
Yeah.
You know. But you need to know that it exists, or you'll get blindsided. You'll get caught off guard when you see it happen. For instance, if my wife, if we go out to eat dinner at a nice restaurant, okay, not like Chili's or someplace, a nice restaurant, expensive food. If my wife and my kids go, like I say, okay, I drop them off, go ahead and get our table, I'm gonna park. When I come in, they'll be in a nice section of the restaurant. And then I'll come and I'll join them. But if I go in first, they always put me in a table by the kitchen. Always.
Why?
Because they don't want you to be up front in this really expensive, nice restaurant. They put you in the back.
What?
So that people don't see you. So they won't go, oh, shoot, I don't think I want to eat dinner here. There's a black person. And then they go somewhere else. So they put you in the back. But I always go, is there any reason why you put me by this kitchen door where I can hear all the dishes and stuff clanging? And, oh, well, no. Do you want to sit somewhere else? I say, yeah, I want to sit up there. And they have to move us.
But what's the difference? You go and your child go.
Yeah, because if a white lady walks in with 2 African American kids,
Oh, your wife.
that's okay.
Oh.
But if I walk in with 2 African American kids, they're going to try to put us as far back in the back as they can.
Still happening today?
Yes, still happens today. 2018. I proved it to my wife because every now and then she goes, oh, it's not that bad. I said, okay, we need to buy a new car. Let me show you what happens. So we went out to Highlands Ranch. And we call Highlands Ranch Vanillaville. Because basically only whites live out there.
Yeah.
And Park Meadows Mall is out there. The car dealership is right across from Park Meadows Mall. So we went to buy a new Cadillac. So we went next door to the Buick dealer, and I told my wife, okay, I want you to walk across the parking lot to the Cadillac dealership and watch what happens.
What happened?
So she walked over there. 6 people that sell cars came out the door and they had her surrounded.
What?
Because they wanted to sell her a car. Because they work on commission. Whoever sells the car, that's who gets paid. Boom. She said, no, I'm just looking. And so she walked around and looked. And then she came back to our car, which was a Cadillac, an Escalade. But we were parked next door. And I said, now watch what happens with me when I go over there. I walked over there. Nobody came out. I walked around the lot for 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Looking at cars. Not one person came to ask me, can I help you? Not one.
Why did they do that?
So, I had my wife come over and we were together. You should have saw their face. Like, oh. So they came out, hi, can we help you? I saw that this is your wife, right? Yeah. Well, I saw that she was over here and we asked her and she said she was just looking. And I said, you see that car right there? I wanted to buy that car.
Did you buy it?
Nope.
Oh.
I went downtown to Rickenbaugh Cadillac. One of my students' father ran that dealership.
Oh.
So I went down there And I said, hey, your son told me I could get a really good deal on a car down here. Yeah, he loves you. He's in your health class. And I bought the same car, same color, everything. And I drove it back out to Massey Cadillac. I pulled up to the door. 6 people came out. I got out of the car, and they went. Because they knew they had messed up. So I said to them, hey, just want to ask you a question. You guys work on commission? Yes. I said, you could have sold me this car. You got the same car right there.
Good morning, sir.
But because you decided that I wasn't good enough, I bought it at Rickenbaugh. You lost a sale.
Stupid.
Yes.
This gentleman is going to be with me.
He is